this there. We did have a little bit of a discussion before we got into this, and I think it is important to clarify what exactly this devotion ability means. Obviously, it's not going to be giving your own units spying. It's going to target one unit, and then it's going to give the adjacent units to that unit that you target spying as well, assuming you do meet the devotion requirement. So up to 3 spying tags that it can give out, meaning that, obviously with your other spying synergy cards there, or maybe even like your usurper that we ended up seeing that ends up stealing back operatives. I do believe they need to be having the spying tag for them to get stolen back, so you could re-up their spying tag to potentially steal them back to your side of the board.
Yeah, and nothing to really shake a stick at either in terms of provision to actual value of the strength of the unit too. 7 for 7 is nothing, is not that bad of a trade-off as well, besides the fact of the deploy effect and the devotion bonus as well. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Fergus Var Emrys is your latest card reveal from the Master Mirror set, but we've got more Gwent action in the here and now. We're not going to talk about feature cards if they're not out yet. Here's the bracket: InfernZ versus JSN. There's the trek that they came in from. InfernZ took out Snap, took out Dark Phoenix, and JSN made short work of Moviusu. Again, that is going to trip me up every time. And Mike to come 2-0ing his way all the way to the finals there. So here it is. We're about ready to rock and roll. We got another little peek at the decks. If I'm not mistaken, we might as well go ahead and take a look at these. And again, Bush, give us a little walkthrough about what these people are bringing to the party.
Well, it looks like we're taking a look at JSN's list first here, and he, again, is playing Mobilization, Mystic Echo, and Second Wind, and we're seeing this Second Wind get banned again. Interestingly, I guess people just really don't like Geddyneath. The 2 games that we've watched, this Geddyneath has gone unplayed. Betting on Mystic Echo not getting it done for Mr. JSN here. Definitely thinking that Geddyneath's a little bit more problematic. Siege Draug, again, very greedy, polarized style of list that we saw in the previous game with Mobilization. And then Mystic Echo, we've seen it all before. Not anything particularly different about that one.
No, Mystic Echo, again, JSN counting his blessings, being able to play in the final nonetheless with something, a powerhouse just like Mystic Echo. I mean, you include it in your deck list. Some people don't even include it at all because they assume that it's just going to get outright banned. And in this case, JSN getting 2 free passes to play Mystic Echo. I mean, that is a good place to be. But if you're InfernZ, you've got some confidence on your side because you made it to the final. So why not play against Mystic Echo? And what is InfernZ? What kind of weapons does he bring into the show?
Oh, the Death Shadow gets banned again. I wanted to see the Kikimor Queen get played, but you hate to see it. Kikimor Queen is banned again. Don't get to see any spicy Death Shadow action. Again, we just get to see Strategic Withdrawal, which is the poison that's capable of proccing multiple chapters in one turn. And then Deadeye Ambush without the scenario, instead just relying on the pure point slam of elves and not actually playing into very punishing punishes like this Bomb Heaver that we see very, very popular.
That's right. And moving on, I guess, again, Deadeye Ambush coming through, Strategic Withdrawal. Death Shadow is, I shed a tear for that one as well. There's a deck that I really wanted to see played. I really love me some Kikimor Queen. Unfortunately, the Kinky Queen is going to have to sit back and watch this one from the sidelines as we get ready to rock and roll. It is time for the finals here at the Gwent Summer Jam. Again, we had a massive amount of people coming in for the Swiss. That gets shaved down to 8. The top 8 settled in, and this is it, the final show. The finals between JSN and InfernZ right here. 98.3 TV brings you Summer Jam, and it is time to rock and roll. JSN and InfernZ. It is Mystic Echo versus Strategic Withdrawal.
Yep, and as far as coins go, it looks like Mystic Echo, which should be JSN, ended up getting the double blue coin, and obviously Mystic Echo being one of those lists that's very versatile. It obviously likes red coin, as all lists in this patch do. However, it's capable of playing blue coin and being very, very competent at it, which is why it's such a popular inclusion on top of being a very, very good deck all around.
So there's the list again. Last time that We didn't even get to see it. Waters of Broccolon be played in a victorious effort by JSN using that Mystic Echo list. In this case, I believe he's got it ready to go and locked and loaded. If not, if I'm not mistaken, no, it's not. It's not quite there yet. So he does not have it in hand, but he does have the options if necessary. Otherwise, some pretty big plays. No special cards and no tutors for the special cards. So just dropping a Dwarven Marauder is just as good as it gets right now. And we've seen it before. JSN apparently just is not really ready to go ahead and commit big pieces. He's very content, as far as I understand from his previous plays, to just give up these rounds, playing just a handful of bronze cards and going for the bleed. As InfernZ on the other side really wants to put the pressure down early and slam down that ball and go to town with that.
Yeah, InfernZ having a little bit of a lucky circumstance here, actually drawing his Masquerade Ball in round one without the assistance of a Mata or some other tutor card. Unfortunately for him, however, Aristocrats are a little bit scarce. He's going to have to be using this Vigo comboed, of course, with this upcoming Lock Aristocrat here in order to actually proc both the chapters. But it is still going to put JSN in quite the spot here. Because obviously, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, he's not really committing much. And InfernZ has pulled the Masquerade Ball to abuse this red coin. Losing on even is usually not something that you want to be trying to do.
That's correct. And again, just looking at what's occurred right now, you have it's an 8-point lead, which is not insurmountable, obviously, with one card if you're playing as Mystic Echo. But at the same time, you're at the behest of what InfernZ wants to do. And he slammed down that Masquerade Ball with authority early on because you want to take command of this round. And committing more poison and getting that Thirsty Dame out of the way is a pretty big play with that Willow, another Harmony tag. And InfernZ is going to not relent here. He's going to go ahead and play another Aristocrat. The Van Morlem Hunter is likely going to head and go ahead for some points here with the bleed, complete the poison on the Marauder, and suddenly 7 points back, 2 points of bleed, and you're down. You no longer have the benefit of that strategic. Your stratagem. Your strategic advantage is gone.
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty significant amount of points that he just doesn't really have access to anymore. Down by 4, and InfernZ decides to just take a tempo pass here, meaning that he's forcing JSN to take this round by going down multiple cards, meaning that his bleed isn't really possible, which against Mystic Echo, that is a very, very valid concern, but I'm surprised to see him not actually push for card advantage here. Just saying that his long round's good enough to the point where as long as he doesn't get bled, he's good to go. We'll see if this bet pays off for him.
And with the opportunity here to actually take more advantage of that Hawker Smuggler in the front row, he's going to deposit another bronze card just to get another turn with that Hawker Smuggler, putting some more points in the hand because he knows he's just going to dry pass anyways. So might as well just go ahead and play that bronze card, get another swing of the turns around there, so they you get another boost in the hand from the Smocker Hugler. I say that every time, but it is what it is. As we go here, you can expect a dry pass, obviously. And we're going to go to another long 10-card slugfest between Masquerade Ball and Mystic Echo.
Yeah, and we'll obviously see how it ends up working out. As you probably could have told a little bit earlier, I'm a little bit skeptical for InfernZ here, but he's really trusting his long round capability. Obviously, he's drawn a Sire in this round too, which is going to enable him to just send that Masquerade Ball back right now without even needing to commit that relatively bad 6-point card in round 3. Obviously, not really much of anything else that he's probably going to want to be playing here. He doesn't have that same opportunity of carryover like JSN did in the previous round, so he just takes a pass, gives himself a couple extra mulligans going into this round 3.
Yep, I'm going to go put that on the Asire, go ahead and recover that Masquerade Ball. And now you have the option of actually drawing the Masquerade Ball and using the Mata on something else. So the option is there if necessary, but looks pretty good for now. And like you said, I am in the same boat of skepticism as you are in terms of putting my long round versus a double Waters of Broccolon 10-point round where you haven't seen really any gold pieces out of your opponent, right? Like, what have you seen out of JSN's deck that leads you to believe that, yeah, man, I can actually just, go toe to toe with them? You haven't seen a Treant Boar, you haven't seen a Great Oak, you haven't seen a Pavco Gale. None of the Harmony, engines have left the board either. So there's no Barnabas gone. You got Figus still floating around. You've got so much firepower if you're JSN. InfernZ really needs to play this very carefully and in a very specific order in order for this to really, to be in his favor.
Yep, and Glynis off the start here does seem like a pretty reasonable move from InfernZ. He's most likely planning on replaying that Ramon, as I do believe JSN doesn't have any access to artifact removal, so InfernZ isn't even concerned about making multiple procs on his Masquerade Ball go through in one turn, simply because there just isn't a punish for it. So he's instead probably going to capitalize on the double Sergeant off of this Ramon, which can be really, really good for him, just taking a look at how many deploys he's going to end up having in this hand.
Yeah, JSN is going to have a lot of cards to work with over here. The issue is, if you're InfernZ again, it's tough to actually just go ahead and go toe to toe with a double Waters of Broccolon and a 10 card round. But again, if you have those Sergeants and a Ramon, you've got 3 extra engines to make some hay here. And doing this the proper way, which I don't think it really matters which one you do. I suppose dropping the first Sergeant is the better way. The better play here, as you will then get the benefit of the deploy effect from the Ramon on cloning the other Sergeant. No real issues in terms of actually losing that Sergeant here. If that thing sucks up a removal, then you're fine. I don't think that you're really worse for wear. But JSN's hand is just looking, it's looking so strong.
Yeah, this Pavko coming down and InfernZ not really having reasonable answers for it here. This Ramon isn't doing damage. Poisons are kind of doing damage, except they're really, really slow, and it requires either a Vincent commitment right now, which is going to be too early due to the whole Masquerade Ball situation and Aristocrats, or it's going to require a Masquerade Ball commitment, which is going to be even slower.
So here comes the Ramon cloning the Nausicaa Sergeant. You're getting the trigger off of both the Sergeant and the Glynis as the tag. Here comes the strategic withdrawal. Let's go ahead and do it again, Ramon. Why not? And here is where it becomes, you got a glimmer of hope if you're InfernZ, because now you're staring at the engine pieces that are, across the board in terms of the Harmony, in terms of those fledglings. But now you got 4 engines of your own. 3 of them operating off of the deploy effects, Glynis off of the assimilate effect, and you still have another Sergeant in hand. So with every card potentially triggering a deploy effect, I think InfernZ is setting himself up for some pretty decent success here.
And again, we just see the battle of the engines coming through. JSN develops another one, and we have how many engines at this point? 6 on JSN's side, 4 on InfernZ, and we're 6 total cards into this round, and there's 10 engines hanging out. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's like we said, a slugfest, man. Both of them want to commit points. Now, the problem here is that if you're InfernZ, you could have played a deploy effect to go ahead and trigger that 2-point Sergeant to save it from the Pavko, which is just going to execute it right now. But at the same time, then you're losing out on potentially the other Sergeant coming in, completing the deal. Now, that's interesting. I guess he's going to go with the Hawk here. He's got 2 Hawks to go. He's got... Next turn is going to be a 6-point damage turn. He could really put some damage on the board here.
Yeah, and potentially even more, if he wanted to commit something like this Great Oak. He's got pretty much everything that he would ever reasonably want to remove within his reach to be able to remove. It looks like InfernZ, considering this Masquerade Ball right now, obviously you would expect the Thirsty Dane that spawns off of it to be getting pretty much executed immediately, which is maybe why that Mata is also getting considered there, just so that the pure engine value doesn't take out InfernZ cards here. It also has the benefit of playing Mata that this melee row Sergeant goes up to 3 points. So again, it does require 2 order abilities to actually take it out rather than just the 1.
So Mata's going to pick up Joaquin in this case and gets the trigger off of the deploy effects, another 3-point little bonus. You get a Dwarven Miner on the other side for JSN. Not the best thing, given the fact that, let's just look at these cards. Now, the problem here is that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 units on the back row. Dropping Figus in the back row essentially ends that whole story. Filling it up, meaning that the Oak is not as great as it claims to be.
Because Transport can't move.
I'm sorry,
The Treant boar can move, so that
correct. It can move and making some space, which it is here. But now again, you're losing a little bit of value off of your Figus, but I don't think you're terribly afraid. But eventually, you're gonna have to drop it because you're not gonna get the benefit of the rowdy dwarf coming off of the Figus there. And not only that, but yeah, again, 3, 6, 7. If you drop Figus into the back row, you're clogging it up with the 7. So what you have to do, I believe, is you have to bring the boar back, drop the Figus to prevent the rowdy dwarf spawn, and then you still open up some space again for your boar to jump back and forth. I think that's kind of the play here, because if he just drops Figus on the back row, then it's locked and loaded and it's all tied up. But again, Roderick is just ends that whole conversation in a pinch here, because it's so difficult to manage these rows when you have an opponent who can easily just deploy onto them.
yeah, and especially when spies are such an unpopular like archetype as a whole. Obviously, Joachim and Roderick are really really popular cards, but the concept of playing around getting your rows stacked just hasn't really existed in Homecoming Gwent for the most part, and it oftentimes doesn't get played around super effectively, especially by things like Harmony that really want to row stack in the first place.
And in this case, the Masquerade Ball finally showing up. It's going to get a little bit of value coming out. There's the Thirsty Dame. And we're in a situation again where you could, if you're worried about a rot tosser, maybe you keep the boar in the back row, but I don't think you're terribly worried about it at this point. I mean, this is a difficult scenario because you have to keep a space in the back row for your boar to go and do its Texas two-step back and forth and get its value. But at the same time, you're opening up to a potential rot tosser that you can't really answer because the row is clogged, so you can't really block the poison deposit. Still some pretty big cards though for JSN to play here. And there it is. That's the end of that whole story. Joachim is going to go ahead and put a stop to the boar's little dance back and forth. It tells it to pick a lane, and that's where it's going to stay.
Unless, of course, a poison does end up coming through here, which InfernZ pulling an aristocrat off of the top of the deck. I'm willing to bet he probably didn't want to see that happen because he's probably going to end up having to take out one of these poisoned units right now, and that's just again going to mean that this Treant boar is going to be free to move. Surprised to see the lock come through on that same Treant boar, because it does the same amount of engine value. Oh no, that's not true. This Pavko is only doing 1 per turn at this point, so because of the Nilfgaard human tags hanging out on the board, so both are effectively only 1 point per turn. That does make sense. That InfernZ does take that line there.
Yeah, and with the lock on the Treant boar as well, it's denying the value from the bouncing back and forth and the 2 damage and such. Plus, it's a little bit more of a valuable target for Vincent to convert on and kill. There is another target of opportunity for a Fangs to complete onto the final fledgling. The game's fairly close here. I mean, looking at the point value, those Sergeant engines are really representing a lot of value. As you can see, there's a 12 in the back row and 11 in the back row. Here comes a Thirsty Dame as well. Just kind of like sitting there, not really representing a whole lot. And there's a nice poison, but it's got nothing to really work with at this point. And the Bowman doesn't have that back row to help it out.
Yep, so he just ends up taking the Marauder. No Harmony tags to be had, no poison to be had, no extra damage to be had. He just takes the most point slam. Marauder hanging out. He puts himself up by, after this Vitality, it should be 14. Both players having 2 cards remaining, but InfernZ has engine value left, whereas JSN not so much. This Barnabas is going to be giving Harmony once, but other than that,
I think you got to Vincent the Dwarf here. I think that's your proper play. The Vincent on the Dwarf, while it still has the Vitality status, might be your best option.
And there's obviously no punish for it, as Defender onto the ranged row is no concern for InfernZ here, as you know, obviously that poison can't get protected, so that is exactly the play that he ends up taking. Puts himself up by 1 point. JSN having the choice of whether or not to go Defender or Barnabas here, decides to go Defender. Well, not yet.
Apparently not, but I mean, at the same time, what's the difference at this point? Lots and lots of points off of that dwarf. Off that gnome comes through, but again, it came down to a matter of manipulating that back row and really limiting what was being had here. But again, Mystic Echo just offers so much points, so much, even despite the fact that there was these massive pockets of points that were just scrubbed off the board through poison, through Vincent, excuse me, in so many different ways. It didn't matter. And again, it comes down to the fact that um, you're playing a strong deck. You're playing Masquerade Ball, lots of points, lots of control, excellent, awesome. But can you really go toe to toe with a double Waters of Brocklon in a 10 card round? It's such a massive, massive, massive undertaking to really to go and give my regards to your balls, Inferns, because dear Lord, is that a scary prospect in the finals to do? But can he beat Can he beat Mystic Echo Bush? I don't know if that's possible.
I mean, obviously, with the line that we saw there, if it kind of requires JSN to miss like the Pavko or the Wild Boar, these other engines that ended up playing for absolutely absurd value. So it was close. I don't know if it was potentially his best line. He definitely had an opportunity to try to win on even there in that round one, but obviously, as we saw, he did take it for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, it's not done yet, of Ken. It's a best of 3 in this case. So we're going to go to game 2 here at the Summer Jam presented by 98.3 TV. Here we go. It's InfernZ representing, once again, he's going to go with the tactical withdrawal. And we've got mobilization again. Siege, baby. I love to see it. And is this I don't know if this is the Drog list, if I'm not mistaken. Drog and Siege put together?
Yeah, Draug, Siege playing on the red coin. You got to imagine that JSN is probably trying to find one of those in this round one to maybe try to abuse this coin. And now we see InfernZ on the blue coin again, desperately trying to get this Masquerade Ball through. And we'll see if he's able to do it and continue this into a game 3.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of actually having to get through with those decks that you think that you're going to do well with, but you gotta force him through at a certain point. So he's got to take another chance. I mean, at some point he's going to have to win with it. So we might as well make it this at this point. If this is your strongest deck, there's no point in not bringing it into the blue coin matchup. Here it is. Masquerade Ball brings out the Thirsty Dame. Roach comes out for a little extra thin. And now it's just JSN. And in terms of proactivity, it seems like such a silly question. Do you play your Bomb Heaver against a 2 chapters left on a wide open scenario? But the question is that that you're going to see it twice. So do you want to beat it now or do you want to beat it later? It's a scary thing, but that is such a cool play. You never see this, but the Queen of Dahlia onto the Bomb Heaver, creating a little brother for him to come in shielded and ready to go. Goodbye, Sweet Prince. That is a Masquerade Ball into the graveyard. Cool, cheeky play there.
Yeah, he doesn't even have to ask that question there, although I can definitely see how the second Bomb Heaver can be a little bit iffy, as obviously with that leader ability hanging out, that you would expect the second Masquerade Ball to probably instantly proc its first chapter in the turn that it ends up getting played. So this Bomb Heaver realistically probably only denying the final chapter of the ball. So definitely not going to be the greatest, but still probably good enough to be holding on to.
Sire's going to go ahead and just see like, oh yeah? Well, see you later, buddy. As it goes back into the deck, 2 potential draw rounds and mulligans to go find it again if necessary. Here comes a Boiling Oil onto a nice prime target there before some more statuses are put onto the board. And as you can see, the Jin is not yet rubbed out of that lamp. So there's still 5 points to be had for InfernZ on blue coin, with JSN holding on to some pretty significant pieces. Again, Queen of Dahlia finding that Bomb Heaver means that if there's 2 balls, there's going to be 2 Bomb Heavers. And Traherne comes through looking for target of opportunity, finds Falibor. That's a big, big hit. Obviously, you're probably looking for Siege in that case, but finding a Falibor is a real, real good pickup.
Yeah, obviously, that's going to be playing for a whole lot of future points. And InfernZ obviously popping the lamp, just saying, all right, time to play for carryover. I've lost this round. We see the Adalia Bomb Heaver coming through. He's continuing to just try to trade up. He did have an opportunity to pass there, but considering that he's up by 10 points with this commitment right here, he says, all right, let's just see if JSN has an awkward enough hand to the point where maybe he gives me this round control.
And they're still tossing barbs back and forth. Raw Tosser's going to come through. It's going to find two decently, one nice target, one okay target, I suppose. But at the very least, it is another status being doomed and spying for the Thirsty Dame to get in some boost. And should that Cow Carcass trigger off again, the Thirsty Dame's going to get some extra love from those poison statuses coming through. So you can see right there, little 2 points of recovery, a great little combination piece of the Cow Carcass and the Thirsty Dame. They work real well together.
Yeah, it gives 3 whole synergy points just simply off of deploy, which is obviously really, really nice. Fangs coming through, finishing off that ballista, taking away JSN's capability of doing damage and potentially getting some removal value. Obviously, from our perspective, we can tell he didn't have any extra follow-up damage, but InfernZ ends up actually taking the round and playing out the Traherne in the same round 1, which is obviously really, really good news. You often don't see Traherne getting played in rounds where points actually matter.
Hanging on to that Bomb Heaver for dear life, knowing that there's no actual defender, no Fion to protect that ball. So that Bomb Heaver is going to get some love. It's just a matter of, can he get it in the right spot? Can he get it before it triggers twice? It's an important part here. But as we can see, he's looking for it. He found Siege. He got Drog in there. Falibor fell to Traherne. Is he going to go toss that Bomb Heaver? He's thinking about it. He's hovering over it.
I honestly wouldn't blame him if he did, because this leader ability on Infern's side does mean that first chapter is almost always going to end up getting procced. And the simple threat of the Bomb Heaver existing does mean that Infern's is going to be taking that unoptimal line always. And so you don't really need to be holding onto it to make Infern's take that awkward line. The only thing you really lose is that removal of the final chapter of the Masquerade Ball, which honestly may not be worth too much.
We've seen this before. Crossing past that 7-card threshold is a good indicator that you're gonna be bleeding, and it's gonna get nasty as Glynis comes through. And on the 6 cards left to play, InfernZ is gonna probably go ahead and take that Razor Ramon and drop in a second Sergeant, maybe get another double proc off of it with the leader ability as well. Down he goes. Nausicaa Sergeant comes in with a 2-point little armor hat on him, and holding on to his leader ability.
Yeah, I think he has to. He needs to save it for his Vigo target that's going to end up being an aristocrat, so he can send that back, fully heal it up, and give it a 2-point boost, and synergize with that Masquerade Ball that we're probably going to be seeing in round 3.
Is there any scenario you would suspect perhaps that he's going to hang on to, maybe that tactical withdrawal to use with, let's say, Vincent?
Sure. Yeah, I would definitely expect it to see to go on to some aristocrat. I would almost certainly expect that aristocrat to be coming off of the Vigo, since of course this leader ability does heal as well as boost when it does send back, and Vigo does create a 1-point copy of any bronze card in your deck.
Right, there we go. And that was a nice little swing there. A little high roll in terms of where those pings went for Felipe. That could have gone awfully bad, unfortunately, for InfernZ. That swung real nice. Blind Fury, a little Force Lightning there, hitting all the right targets in the right ways as the Caraballista finishes the job. And Van Morlame's Cupbearer brings a nice little piece of poison onto a 5-point target. Not exactly ideal, but the Pellar is going to go ahead and clean that up and scrub out the dirty on that unit. Again, just coming ahead by 1 point every single time, and InfernZ has got to be thinking whether it's worth it to keep pushing here. The cards he has are not terrible, but they're not for this round. I mean, you're going to go ahead and get ahead by 3 again, which is, the good news here is that this is going to buy a decent card out of him, I think.
Yep, it's gonna have to be Draug, Siege, Bomb Heaver, or Baron, and obviously, if we saw Bomb Heaver getting committed, that's a really, really big play from JSN, even though it's relatively low tempo. But instead, it's just the Draug. Obviously, InfernZ understands that he's not really got any bad cards left in hand. He holds on to his remaining cards as they are both aristocrat tags to synergize with that potential masquerade ball. And he just says it's not worth it. The trades I'm going to get probably aren't going to be worth enough for me to play another one of these cards here.
Yeah, and he's got the options here looking for that. He's got the one trebuchet. Now he's opting rather to keep it in the hand and not double it up with the zeal option, I suppose.
And he's really looking for one of those golds because getting access to the Vigo, like I said, is going to be his leader target. But if he doesn't draw both Masquerade Ball and Vigo, he doesn't get the option anymore. That Roderick's going to have to be drawing that Masquerade Ball, which means leader ability is going to be going on to something else and playing for even less points.
Yeah, it's not looking good for InfernZ here, and he hasn't even seen the bread and butter, the siege that JSN is bringing to the party as the siege goes down there front row center. But the reinforced Treb is going to go ahead and bring a dude to the party here. Now, obviously, playing to the front row is going to dodge all of that incoming shrapnel being tossed his way. But, I mean, in terms of row punish, not a whole lot of row punish either. But it just makes it real nasty for InfernZ to play the back row. And in terms of cards that would be played there, the good news for InfernZ is he has nothing that necessarily has to be played into the back row. So those trebuchets are not going to get a whole lot of work done, but they still represent some decent points on their own.
Yep, and now we do see this Masquerade Ball coming through, and his leader ability probably is going to be sending back that Thirsty Dame that gets spawned off of it. I lied. He pulls back the poison for additional synergy value and then plays out an additional aristocrat from his hand. That way, first chapter does get procced. This Bomb Heaver is less valuable, but we see this Vigo coming through off of the top deck. Bit of a high roll from InfernZ here, but a little bit too little too late. This Vigo really would have loved to be played before the leader ability came through.
But he's going to find all the poison there to deny the actual battering ram order value. Really front stacking that front row.
Oh, that could be big. That might actually be the difference maker here. He does still play into a really, really big Bomb Heaver to be entirely fair, but a Baron, not a Bomb Heaver. This Bomb Heaver, it has been entirely decimated here because that Vigo roll does get the double aristocrat in one turn. And now Thirsty Dame coming down again. We've got two effective poisons remaining on InfernZ side. He's probably trying to optimize his reactivity and just use this poison on whatever's going to be the biggest target. Will he Vincent a spying tag, or will he just Vincent whatever his new poison target's going to be? I think in this case he just ends up Vincenting the spying tag. No real value in poisoning this trebuchet. And
exactly. I mean, you could go ahead, let's put it this way. I mean, you could, if you are going to be dropping a poison on a unit that you plan on following up with Vincent, it has to be 8 or more points to even get that equal or better value. And in this case, Vincent's going to come through and just kill Joaquin. Thanks for your service. Nice to know you. Goodbye. Baron on the Vigo should be enough to actually bring this to a conclusion by one measly point. That's all she wrote, ladies and gentlemen. Those trebuchets sitting back, watching all the fireworks and getting in on it. None of it, unfortunately. Again, my kingdom for a lacerate in that match. Those trebuchets were just completely useless besides the fact that they looked pretty and they are the superior siege engine. Bush, that was an awesome series. 2-0 for JSN, who goes through the entire gauntlet of top 8 bracket to finish this one out, essentially flawless.
Yeah, and I read in the Twitch chat a little bit earlier, apparently JSN is a 16-year-old prodigy. Ended up taking out the entire tournament here, the entire field, taking out some well-known veterans, InfernZ, Mike to come, Movius, have all shown decent tournament results in the past.
And here he comes, just absolutely decimating the board, going through not a single loss to his name and just trouncing and making a mockery of this bracket. But honestly, great showing from all who came through. Again, this has been the Gwent Summer Slam. SummerSlam is a wrestling event held by the WWE. This is not that. This is the Summer Jam. And don't sue us, Vince McMahon, because we have no money. All right. That was a great tournament. Honestly, again, I want to say thank you to you, Bush. Thank you very much for always being an awesome caster, man.
Well, thank you, Flake. I always have a lot of fun casting with you. Bring the energy, like I said at the beginning of the cast. I definitely have a lot of fun every time.
Well, I am still waiting for my sponsorship from any type of coffee company that would like to send me free stuff. Dude, just send it. I swear to God, I will be your absolute marketing whore if you send me free coffee. All right, that said, cookies are acceptable too. Thank you very much again to 98.3 Media, Mark Theus, who's in the back producing this, to Bringer of Winter, who has also done incredible amounts of work on the back end in an administrative role. Friends, we've got a card reveal that we showed you, so make sure that you go check the VOD. If you missed it, well, what's up with that? But you guys are rock solid. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep in mind, we've got a lot more cool stuff to show you. And if you have missed it, there it is. Fergus Var Emrys is the card that we showed you that is coming up in Gwent's brand new expansion at the end of the month called Master Mirror. Fergus Var Emrys. It is a wonderful addition to the spy and the spying archetype for Nilfgaard. So get your grubby little hands on this one, friends. This is a greasy little card that you're going to want to have on your side. And once again, friends, thank you very much for everybody who tuned in to you in the chat. We do have a little bit of some thanks to give as well to this, the Mana Curve Show, starring he's like a sheared sheep, but a handsome sheep that he is. He lost his mane of justice, but Woody is here to host the Mana Curve Show, coming back bi-weekly on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. The latest episode is going to feature a lot of talk about Magic the Gathering and the 2020, the Core 21 set, M21 coming out, as well as the changes to the 2020 Pro scene. So go ahead and check that out as your source for all CCG news, not just Gwent, friends, everything that is digital and paper card games. Check that out as well. Love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you soon. Bush, last word goes to you because you're so handsome.
Oh, really? Well, again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. I always do have a great time casting tournaments. I think it's the funnest thing that this community puts on. Thank you so much, Mark, for putting this together. 98.3. Thank you.